Hello and welcome to another This Week in Politics, part of the Podcast 99 Network, part of Jay's Politics Podcast. You can reach me at jpoliticspodcast@gmail.com or jpolypodcast on Twitter. Sorry, losing my train of thought. Not used to doing this on an actual weekday. Not used to that at all, actually. It is actually due to the fact that I had a change in work schedule last minute. Well, not last minute. I had known basically as of Monday that I would be needing to switch the schedule, but unfortunately, I didn't know whether I should do it tomorrow morning before I go to work, or if I should be doing it tomorrow or today. So I chose to go with today. So, and I just don't like the way that's looking at me. So, there we go. I feel a little better. So yeah, after opening up today, I get to close work tomorrow because one of my coworkers' moms is graduating. So I decided to do today, since I'm already going to be live streaming on Jared's channel tonight with the military hangout, Jared Buteau. That's Jared space Buetow over here on YouTube. Check it out. It's just a bunch of military guys hanging out, chatting, all that fun stuff. And then there's also movie night tonight on Strike's channel, where we just talk about a lot of things wrong with flat Earth and other science discrediting videos. I don't even know what's on the menu for tonight on Strike's channel, but it is what it is. A little underprepared because again, this is kind of rushed last minute, but I think that will be just fine. All right. So a lot going on this week. There's been a lot going on this week and last week, especially talking about the meeting earlier this week in North Korea, or not North Korea, in Singapore, between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump. I like Dave, even though I was not a Cold War warrior. I was on a ballistic missile boat in 99 through 2000. Well, actually, I got to the boat in 2000, just shortly after the Kursk incident. But it is one of those. It is one of those moments where you know my whole job was basically carrying on what Dave and the people before him did, the men before him did, on the Ohio class submarines and on the 41 for Freedom boats, etc. So, just perusing my local, excuse me, excuse me, sorry, just perusing my theolympian.com and Bishop Curry, who sermonized at the royal wedding, visiting Olympia in Aberdeen, Washington on Saturday, for those of you that are interested in that type of thing. So, just curious as to what your guys' thoughts are on the politics, what's going on this time of year. This year, as a matter of fact, as of yesterday, the World Cup started for sports. If you're into that, great. If not, not a problem. But we have midterms coming up. You know, we've got Congress, the federal Congress, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Did I actually click on that, or did I must have clicked on that? Well, that's cool. It's actually something that surprised me. Anyways, where I was going with that is within our federal government, we have our midterm elections where all of the Congress or all of the House of Representatives is up for revote. Okay. And then select senators. They have it parsed out in groups of 3, I believe. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Yeah, I believe that's how it is. So they can cycle in with each midterm as well, so you don't have an overabundance of senators each term. You know what I mean? Each 2-year period. So there is that. Anyways, a local thing here that has always been kind of on the back of my mind because of our lifestyle here in Washington is we have a lot of hunters and a lot of fishers. And the Supreme Court in the state of Washington, the Washington State Supreme Court, has ruled that Washington must remove salmon barriers, and the ruling favors tribes. A lot of my friends that I grew up with are opposed to allowing tribes to have more fishing rights and things like that than the average citizen. However, there are the treaties involved. I thought this would be a one of those. Um, I thought this would be an interesting topic to discuss. I saw it yesterday in the paper and thought it would be interesting, or not in the paper, but online. Um, Here, let me share my screen so you can see what I am talking about. Sorry, I am just totally not as prepared as I would like to be. Not that I'm ever truly prepared either, but anyways. So here we are. The Washington State must restore salmon habitat by removing barriers that block fish migrations after actually it's the U.S. Supreme Court. I thought it was the state Supreme Court. It's even better. After the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday left place a lower court order. The justices along a four divided 4-4 along the long-running dispute that pits the state against the Northwest Indian tribes and federal government. The ties serves to affirm a lower court ruling. Justice Anthony Kennedy stepped aside from the case because he participated in an earlier stage when he was served on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So now that makes more sense to me as just perusing this, but um, I find it very laudable. I find it very authentic for any justice, regardless of who it is, to step aside in a decision that they've already made a decision on. Whether it is what was I going to say? Totally forgot what I was going to say. Whether they want to or not, I just really think that they should. I don't know if the rules state that they have to. I'll have to look at that. Um, SupremeCourt.gov. I'll have to take a look at that later. But at issue is whether the state must pay billions to fix or replace hundreds of culverts, large pipes that allow streams to pass beneath roads but can block migrating salmon if they become clogged or if they're too steep to navigate. Okay. Leaders of several Western Washington tribes cheered at the decision Monday, calling it a victory that affirms their treaty rights, like I said earlier, while protecting salmon central to their way of life. Jay Julius, the chair of the Lumi Indian Business Council, wow, words are hard today, said it was a win for treaty rights and river rights in salmon. But this is not just about tribes. Treaty right to fish, but also inherent right to harvest from plentiful, healthy supply of salmon, he said. Lorraine Loomis, chair of the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission, said that the decision would open hundreds of miles of high-quality salmon habitat that will produce hundreds of thousands of more salmon annually for harvest by Indians and non-Indians. It really should be saying Native Americans, not Indians, but it is what it is. The Supreme Court in April heard the state's appeal of the ruling by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. That court affirmed a lower court decision in 2013 requiring the state to fix or replace hundreds of high-priority culverts within 17 years. Washington has argued that its treaties with the tribes create no obligation to restore salmon habitat. I find that hard to believe. It says the ruling would force it to perform work that would not benefit the salmon because other barriers may completely block fish, and would also make the state's taxpayers responsible for fixing problems created by the federal government when it was specifically designed for the state's old highway culverts. Wait, what was it? It would make the state taxpayers responsible for fixing problems created by the federal government when it specified when it specified the design. It is unfortunate that Washington state taxpayers should shoulder all of the responsibility for the federal government's faulty culvert design, said Attorney General Bob Ferguson in a statement. He said the salmon can't reach many state culverts because they are blocked by culverts owned by others, such as the counties and federal government. The legislature has a big responsibility in front of them to ensure the state meets its obligation under the court ruling. Seeking a Supreme Court review, Ferguson was at odds with other state officials, including Governor Jay Inslee, and Public Lands Commissioner Hilary Franz. For some time now, I have hoped that instead of litigation, we could focus together on our ongoing work to restore the salmon habitat, Inslee said. It's time to stop fighting over who should do what, said Franz. Now, I totally, totally agree that we here as taxpayers in the state of Washington, through our property tax, our sales tax, whatever we are paying, shouldn't have to pay for issues that the federal government said these are the culverts you are going to use. However, we should have in the early on stages said, "Hey, look, what about our wildlife, such as fish? You know, the salmon, they can clog. That looks like they can clog this up." As a matter of fact, they should have tested it by putting it in one place and seeing what happened first, and then going back to the federal government. And the federal government should have responded to that properly. However, I understand that we should be doing this as well. The U.S. government sued Washington in 2001 on behalf of 21 tribes to force it to replace the culverts with structures that allow fish to pass through. Because the pipes block salmon from reaching their spawning grounds, they deprive the tribe of fishing rights guaranteed by treaties, said the lawsuit. In 2013, Judge Ricardo Martinez ordered Washington to fix or replace more than 1,000 culverts, blocking access to 1,600 miles of salmon habitat. He set the deadline for 2030 for the high priority barriers. By next year, the state transportation department would have spent $200 million to fix 66 high priority culverts, with about 425 remaining, said Paul Wagner, the head of the agency's fish passage program. It'll be a big victory for fisheries, says Bob Anderson, law professor and director of Native American law at the Law Center at the University of Washington. He said that since 1905, the court has consistently upheld the tribal position that they have a right to a fair share of the salmon and implied rights that go along with it. But the case is a logical extension of those prior decisions. End quote. State Senator Ravenna Carlisle, chairman of the State Senate Energy, Environment, and Technology Committee, said Monday's ruling was a forceful function to double down on every level to reprioritize our approach to salmon. Carlisle said that while he does not think that the legislature needs an immediate special session to address the ruling, work will be done ahead of next legislative session that begins in January. Um, Carlisle, I would say actually we probably should have a special session, at the very least, a special session for the committees to deal with this issue in both houses. I honestly think that with the how do I want to put it? With this ruling, the more time we waste means the less time that we have to worry about it, less time we have to fix the problem. And from what it sounds like, we have already started. We fixed 66 of them with about 425 to go. We should make sure that everything's in place at least for January, because if people come in and find out that we needed, I don't want to put it. If they come in and find out that we should be paying more or paying less, why jump into a problem in January when you could set the groundwork for it now? Now, I understand that not every one of your replacements or potential replacements is going to be in favor of this. But there's nowhere to go now. We have no choice unless we can get the tribes to sit down and renegotiate a treaty, which they're not. Sorry about that. It's a little warm up here today. So that's part of the reason why I've been trying to do these at night, is it's a little cooler in here. But when it comes to the way we as a nation deal with the treaties that our ancestors had set up with the Native Americans, we need to look not only for the issue of excuse me, We need to not only look at how they were written, why they were written, who they favor per se, but we need to look at our responsibility as a nation, a state, a county, whoever makes these treaties. We have to make sure that we understand that we still have to live by them. Even though this is 2018, we set up a legal framework to work with the Native American tribes, or First Nation, if you will, however you want to call them. But I think that I think it is one of those things where we have to discuss this. We have to sit down and discuss this like adults. We have to sit down and instead of pointing fingers at who's to blame, us or the federal government, I think to replace these culverts that were supposedly mandated by the federal government, and I trust that they were because it sounds like something they would do. We could easily just go and say, okay, fine, we'll get this done, but then pass on the bills so that way they know exactly how much we've spent. And maybe they don't split 50-50 with us. They could do 75-25, something like that. We could split the bill somehow. And that's where I think we need to spend our time as a legislature. Our state legislature needs to figure that out. They need to fix it themselves. Looks like the investigator and the Tacoma lawmaker violated harassment and ethics policy. All right. Scrolling. State Representative David Sawyer has violated harassment and ethics policy per the investigator. House Democrats on Monday released a summary of the independent investigation that found State Representative David Sawyer broke ethics and harassment policy with a wide range of behavior, including inappropriate text messages to staff and romantically pursuing a coworker who made it clear she was not interested, is what I'm assuming it's going to say. Yes. The conclusions come after roughly a 4-month investigation in which attorney Elizabeth Van Mops, I hope I pronounced that right, Moppes, Mops, I have no clue, interviewed 24 people and scrutinizes Sawyer's emails, documents, text messages, and more to research the allegations stretching us back to the fall of 2017. In the end, Van Mops said that Sawyer violated policy with his behavior towards 3 women who worked at the Capitol, likely creating a hostile work environment, for one based on gender and another based on sexual orientation. None of these women were identified in the report, which is good. I think that they don't need to be represented here in the court of public opinion. However, he does have the right to confront his accusers when it comes to any court proceedings that he has to go through. Sawyer sent one of the women inappropriate and offensive text message over a 3-month period and used his position over her as a lawmaker to force her to respond to him. The report says that when I hear stories like this, I immediately think that these men who do this are so lacking in confidence in themselves that they're not truly men. They're boys. They're little teenage boys, in my opinion. I don't know. This will probably upset many of his fan base and whatnot. Not that I think he has much of one right now, but I just I, anytime that you have to abuse your position of power, and I know absolute power corrupts absolutely, but anytime that you have to resort to that because who the heck does she think she is to decline my advances, or if you're a homosexual man or even bisexual man, who's he to do that? It doesn't matter what the position is. You should not you should not do that and expect to get away with it. So, um, he disregarded her stated request that he shut it down and pressed her with unwanted attention, Van Mopes wrote. Both his conduct and his intentions were sexual in nature, according to the report. In a statement Monday, Sawyer did not dispute the findings of the investigator or the House officials, saying it is clear that I messed up and it's time for me to acknowledge some personal mistakes. Clearly, my actions made people who work with me uncomfortable, he said. That is This is the guilty conscience of a guy who got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. That's all there is to it. I would love to sit here and say that I could trust him to tell me that he's sorry and that he means it, but I don't think he truly is because now it's, circle the wagons and damage control at this point. Sawyer also noted that he was relieved that other outrageous claims and allegations circling about me are not present in the report. He did not say what those allegations are. Before the report, Sawyer insisted that his behavior has been professional and lawful. He also accused Democratic leaders of politicizing the investigation and concealing information in an attempt to force him from office. I highly doubt that. In addition to Van Moop's 5-page summary, the House counsel Alison Helberg wrote a one-page set of findings that based on the full investigation with broader conclusions about Sawyer's behavior. Hel- Helberg wrote, Sawyer texted and drunk dialed multiple women at inappropriate hours. All right. I know I'm not sharing this. I just realized that, but you know, let get that over here. All right. So right here at this article here. She also said that Sawyer responded to cautions by lawmakers and staff about his behavior by saying he was not the one who would get fired. Well, we'll see about that. I mean, it's just one of those things. Van Moops also concluded that Sawyer wrongly used state resources by forcing two House staffers to strategize about how an impending story from the News Tribune, the Olympian, and Public Radio Northwest News Network related to his conduct. The investigator wrote he required, and that required is in air quotes or is in quotes by the way, one House employee to spend substantial, and I can quote around substantial time discussing his frustrations about the upcoming story and made her discuss updates he received from friends contacted by the three news outlets. He contacted her after hours on her own unpaid time to discuss the confidential and personal details of the situation, the report said. He required that she support him with the problems he was having with his personal press. Sawyer also made multiple inappropriate and offensive comments and jokes about sexual orientation of the woman Mope Mope's said the Mope's summary said. According to the report, the second woman forced to strategize with Sawyer about the upcoming news story says Sawyer detailed his dating and sex life with Washington state politics at least once. After House Majority Leader Pat Sullivan told him this was improper, quote around improper here, he apologized and still asked if she wanted to chat about his strategy with the press, the report said. Once published in February, the news story detailed the accusations of 8 women that Sawyer engaged in behavior that ranged from inappropriate to harassing before and after he was first elected to the legislature in 2012. Allegations made by a range of Capitol workers and others, such as the lobbyists, including persistent and suggestive electronic messaging, unwanted attention, and comments with sexual overtones. Sawyer has denied many of those accusations. I mean, honestly, people, why does this not surprise me in this day and age that people like this still exist out there? Why does it? I don't know. It's just one of those things I am just beyond frustrated with. And what the heck? I did not click on a news story, you stupid machine. Come on. Come on. Anyways, it's just I should be surprised. I should have to feel some sort of indignation towards this. But honestly I don't because this happens all the time at local and federal levels. And yet I'm not condoning his action at all. I don't think that he he needs me to condone his actions because honestly, I don't. But even if he wanted me to, even if he thought I should, it's just no. The man needs to the man needs to just be removed from office. Anytime that you anytime that you could even consider making such comments, such messaging to employees, staffers, whether they're your own personal staffers or staffers of other people, it's horrible. I mean, like, I have no other words for it. It's just driving me insane thinking about that. Now, honestly, I don't find it surprising. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But I don't know. All right, let's see here. What else could we talk about today? Because I am actually usually I last week I spent an entire day on one article. Now today I can't seem to find enough articles. All right, let's go now. Here we go. Nevada to consider changes after High Court voter ruling. Let's see here. Nevada's election officials say that they will consider whether the state will adopt a more aggressive approach to maintaining voter rolls, a move the American Civil Liberties Union (ACLU) said Friday would closely monitor to ensure people aren't denying their people are not denied their right to vote. Nevada officials will contemplate a tougher approach after the U.S. Supreme Court voted in a 5-4 ruling Monday, affirming Ohio's practice of identifying voters poten- for potential removal if they don't vote in federal elections. What? Ohio removes voters from the rolls if they don't return an address confirmation card or vote during the next 4 years. Nevada currently use voter inactivity as a trigger for removal from the rolls, but it can eventually lead to a registration being canceled. States are required under federal law to ensure that voter lists are accurate and up to date, but they are barred from removing somebody from the rolls solely because they didn't vote. We think that the right to vote is sacrosanct and people should always have the opportunity to vote. ACLU of Nevada Executive Director Todd Story said. A deputy to Nevada Secretary of State, Barbara Segvesky, I hope I pronounced that right too, said the office will examine the court's ruling this summer to consider whether to start using failure to vote to begin with the removal process. Okay. Wow. That just that's a lot to unpack there, just in that little bit. I don't think that voter inactivity should mean that you should be denied access to vote. What if you are living abroad and you just can't do it? What if you're serving in the military and you don't get sent your what are those ballots called? Absentee ballots. Things like that. To be honest, I don't get it. I mean, I will vote on here in Washington, I will vote on almost everything except for primaries. When it is just candidate primary. If there's nothing on there that's going to affect me as a person that I can willingly adopt, i.e., Republican candidate or the Democratic candidate, for whatever race, because I don't vote by party line, and there's not something that's like a property tax or a school levy that's going to increase the property tax of my landlord's property, ergo making my rent go up, I'm not too worried about voting. Now, granted, they're talking about, not voting for over a period of 4 years, which usually there's at least 1 to 2 votes each year on something with your community. I get it. So, but it is, yeah, it is one of those things where I'm just like, okay, that just sounds wrong. No citizen, and I stressed the citizen part of this correctly. I stressed the citizen part for emphasis because when it comes to the right to vote, I believe that citizens have that right. Not just people living here, but actual citizens. Because you may be working here as a legal immigrant on whether it be a student visa and you're working a second job to make money, to as to a legal immigrant here working. That doesn't give you the right to vote in my book. Now, if you were to say get a permanent work visa or something like that, basically where you become a citizen or the equivalent thereof, by all means, vote. I'm all for that. Again, we should we should have to prevent voter fraud, honestly, obviously, but we shouldn't have to go to the extremes that people are talking about. Now, currently, what Nevada does is if they get any indication that you have moved, they will send you a address confirmation card, and that indication could include a return piece of election-related mail, change of address notification from the postal service, or a notification from an electronic registration information center. A system known as ERIC is used by more than 20 states and the District of Columbia to maintain voter rolls by checking their lists with motor vehicle records, death records, and change of address records. If voters don't return the address card, they are put on inactive status. Okay, here here's my thing with that. Is if I'm in the middle of moving, whether it's being moving from one apartment to another, an apartment to a house that I'm renting, or to a house that I've bought, if I get that in the first few weeks, that confirmation, unless it's close to an election, I'm gonna probably end up losing it, or probably having it thrown away because honestly, it's not gonna be that important to people. However, to process this, they should probably make I don't know how they look, I don't know what they look like in Nevada, but they should probably put them on a list of some sort or make it flashy enough that, "Hey, we noticed you have moved. If you still want to vote," and emphasize, "still want to vote, send this card back," or something like that. Heck, even prepay the postage for all I care. I don't know how Nevada can do that. I just saying that would be a good way. But, in all honesty, I just don't see why there is an issue with this voter inactivity. Because again, not everything is relevant to me as a voter. And why should I vote on something that's not relevant to me? Oh, well, it could be something that um, it could be something that you um, might have to deal with in the future as a homeowner. Okay. But if I don't ever own a home, then does it really bother me? Does it really affect me? Well, things like that. I mean, it is just one of those things. Anyways, so let's go with. I mean, I'm running out of topics here. I might have to do a short show today. Try not to, but I might. Um, let's see. What else can we talk about here today? Let's go somewhere. Let's go to another state. Let's go to one that I have not discussed yet. Let's go to news. New London. I haven't been to New London, Connecticut in a while. And since it is Friday and we are, how do I want to put it? Okay, let's do local source the U.S. patch. Well, that's not what I wanted. Let's go to the home page really quick. Um, how do I want to put this? I'm just losing my train of thought here. It's been a long day. Because it's Military Friday for me, hanging out with my military veteran friends is one of those um it is one of those things that, going back to where I used to be stationed, seems like a pretty fun thing. Let's see. The patch looks like a more of like a blog thing than an actual newspaper. All right, let's see here. Let's go to the day. All right. See if I can find. I don't want necessarily opinion. Well, let's go news. Please, local. All right, let's see here. Oh, Tibetan official visits the Otis Library and thanks Norwich for welcoming the Tibetan immigrants. That's good, pretty good one. Uh, East Lyme considers tax abatements to attract retain volunteer firefighters. Fentanyl, the volume, and don't care about that. All right. Nothing that I can. No. Well, that'll be interesting. Here's a little history for you. A deep dive to assess the pollution risks of World War II shipwreck site off of Long Island. The Coast Guard wants to find out if the British tanker sunk by the German U-boats off the coast of Long Island in World War II is leaking oil. Oh, and I'm not going to be able to look at this. Oh, God, this is so stupid. Yes. This is so stupid. They're making me answer a survey. Have you... No, not at all. Good. Okay. The 452 long tanker Cumbria, I hope I'm pronounced that right. If any of you British people are watching, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. It's Coimbra, Coimbra. Is broken into three parts and is resting on its starboard side about 170 feet below the water, roughly 30 miles southeast of Shinnecock, New York, off of the Long Island South Shore. The Coast Guard has received reports of oil sheens near the wreck from different sources, including NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration satellite system, that can detect oil anomalies as recent as this year. It is contracted with the Florida-based salvage company Resolve Marine to conduct underwater assessment of the Coimbra from June 19th, starting next week, through June 27th to assess the condition of the tanker and any potential environmental impact. It has asked boaters to stay 500 yards away from the dive operation while the assessment is underway. Divers and remote operated vehicles will be used to survey the wreck. Now, the day after departing from New York, the Coimbra was hit by a G-7E torpedo from a German U-boat at 9:41 p.m. on January 15th, 1942. The crew of the U-boat had spotted the navigation lights on the stern of the tanker while traveling east following the southern shore of Long Island. Of the Combra's 46 crew members, only 10 survived, 6 of whom were wounded after being rescued from rafts and a lifeboat in the rough seas by the American destroyers USS Rowan and USS Mayrant. I have no clue. According to the casualty narrative of the Coimbra on www.uboat.net, it was the second tanker to be sunk off of Long Island in 2 days, according to the days the website I'm actually reading off of, um, which is really interesting. Many people don't realize that we were actually attacked by German U-boats off the coast between the between British ships and American ships, and it's one of those things that I find absolutely fascinating about World War II is that we actually had German operatives on our soils that were deposited by U-boats, and if it weren't for the fact of some actually active watchstanders on these beaches, we would never have known about them. They could have gotten away with their jobs. Being a U-boat commander was probably one of the toughest jobs in the World War, including even early on when they had the dominance of the wolf packs. But as they started losing actual high prestige commanders, they started losing the tenacity, the guile that these men had, and it was just the cojones on these guys to come all the way to American shores, away from the safety of Germany and Europe, the European mainland. Just crazy. I mean, I have for all the damage they did and all the lives they caused, you have to understand that the amount of respect that you have for somebody willing to do their job, even if it's a time of war. You don't have to agree with their politics. You don't have to agree with what they're saying per se. I mean, most of the Nazi hierarchy, the actual military guys, weren't truly devout Nazis and didn't know all the atrocities that were going on. Now, that's not to say ignorance is a reasonable defense, but if you tell me that every single person who was a Nazi military member was a Nazi and therefore just as evil and culpable as, Hitler or anything like that, well, guess what? We are all just as culpable in anything that bad that our country's done against any other nation. Is that a fair assessment of you? Well, I didn't support this war. I didn't support you guys doing this. That's not the point. If you make us accountable to the actions of our leaders, then like people do with the Nazis, then you might as well turn and point the fingers at ourselves. Um, One of my favorite historical figures that gets brought up a lot in conspiracy theorists and um, conspiracy websites, excuse me, is Werner von Braun, the man who created the V-2 rockets that bombed London in the later days of the war to no avail. I mean, if they'd been able to get this technology early on, might have actually swayed the war earlier on. However, the man didn't truly hold to the Nazi ideologies and actually didn't get to become a member of the Nazi party in the military, part of the SS, until I think midway through the war, if I remember correctly. I mean, I have to go back and look it up. But the point I'm trying to make is that most of these people were not under some delusion of Adolf Hitler was this great and wonderful guy. They saw him for what he was, but they also knew that if they reacted in a way negative, that would make things harder for themselves and worse off for their families. And when you care about your family, you're more than yourself. You're willing to deal with those things that the family was should not have to deal with. And I'm not trying to absolve him of everything that the Nazis did. I mean, heck, he had slave labor for he had slave labor to build the V-2 rockets, to help build all the parts, machine them, and stuff like that. And that's atrocious. But if you ever watch the documentary series Space Race, you'll understand that he's like, well, would it have really mattered if I had stood up or not, or if I had not done this? They would have just found somebody else to do it, and then I wouldn't be sitting here today. So I mean, it's one of those things, we have to look when we look at history, when we look at the way things are in the world, to characterize and generalize people based on one thing, such as their military affiliation, and judge them to be monsters is horribly ludicrous in my mind. It's just were the Nazis as a whole bad because of the things that went under Adolf Hitler, Hermann Goering, uh, Heinrich Himmler of the SS, with Auschwitz and all that, the concentration camps, the Holocaust in general. Yes, horrible, and I do not agree with it. Whereas there's some good in the world from the Nazi world. We get the story of Schindler's List. We get stories of people, workers saving babies through in their toolkits and things like that. I mean, it's not every German was a Nazi, and not every Nazi was a German. And we have to stop. We have to stop thinking of people as Nazi and evil, or good or bad. Dealing with absolutes in things is hard. It's one of those things you cannot, in my opinion, you cannot reconcile with everyone. You can't force people to be an absolutist in anything. I mean, like, I served in the Navy on submarines. Early on in submarine warfare, people didn't look at us as traditional sailors, as true sailors. They thought of us as less than pirates even. They would rather have pirates in their navy than submariners. But when they saw what we could do and how we could do it, that changed their mind really quick. But early on, the Admiralty in the UK thought we were worse than pirates. So, I mean, it's all a matter of perspective. It's all a matter of how you want to deal with things and how you want people to deal with you. So, honestly, say what you be honest with people, say what you want to say, but also stand by the fact that you will have repercussions for what you say. That's why I do this. I don't hide my face from you guys. That's why I do this on my YouTube channel. I don't hide myself from you guys. I don't even change my name or nothing. I will if I say something that offends somebody, please tell me it offends you. I would love to have that discussion. Please tell me that you think my opinion is crap, garbage, shit, whatever you want to say. I don't care in the sense that it's not going to offend me that you're offended, but I'd like to at least get to the root cause of why you're offended. What is it that I said that made you upset? You know, um, I watch on YouTube Spectre Sound Studios. Um, it's a YouTube channel that was set up before the Spectre Media Group, SMG, by Glenn Fricker. Got a great T-shirt on there that says "Nobody cares that you're offended." And I happen to live by that because it's one of those things. If I offend somebody, offense is always taken. It's never intended. I don't go out of my way to say, you know, Republicans are, you know, religious, homophobic, evil people, which not all of them are. Some people are actually just conservative in nature. They don't even have to be religious to be conservative in nature. You know, the regressive left is a bunch of ideological collectivist morons, things like that. I don't go out of my way to say things like that. I don't go out of my way to try and offend anybody. But at the same time, if we're going to sit here and be honest, I'm not going to truly care if I offend you if what I had to say has weight and has merit. If I'm presenting an argument that's based on fact or what I can gather as fact on something, then great. If I'm reading a newspaper article and I'm giving my opinion about what the article says, I'm going with that as being, for the most part, factually true. No, not all of it's going to be. And if something changes, I'm willing to redact it. But like I said, with David Sawyer from Tacoma, the man, I honestly don't think of that person as a man, because the way he treats the women in subordinate positions to him. What kind of man truly does that? And to be honest, in my opinion, it's a man that just does not feel confident in himself. I mean, I don't know anything about him, whether he served in the military or not. I don't know his lifestyle, his upbringing, but to me, it sounds like with how he treats the women around him, that's my opinion of him. Now, my opinion can be changed of him. My opinion can be changed of anybody. You know, you could tell me that Hitler was this evil person to the Jewish people, but only to find out that, you know, say something comes out that no, he wasn't. His plan wasn't to enslave them, which I know that it was, but I'm just saying hypothetically, if we could come out and say no, he actually wrote down what he wanted to be done, and it was actually Heinrich Himmler and Hermann Goering who came up with these things. It was Hitler's idea to actually send them somewhere else to where they could be on their own, not interfere with German society. You know, what would we do then? How would we change our opinion of Hitler if that came out? Again, I'm not saying it is going to come out. I'm not saying that at all, that it is 100% factual. I'm saying, what if those facts came into light? How would we feel? How would we change our opinion on something like that? You know, maybe if I do some more research into David Sawyer, I'll find out, that he's a caring family man. But in all honesty, he did get swept away in his power. That doesn't condone what he did. That doesn't say that what he did is right or excusable. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that my opinion based on this is based on limited factors. And I have to be willing to change my opinion, and you should too. You should be able to hear the facts. You should be able to hear the truth of a matter about a person or a thing and accept it. I mean, if if you follow my channel for any length of time, if you follow my activity on other live streams, most of my other stream interaction is with flat Earth debunking, where we watch flat Earth videos and just laugh at the stupidity, try and present facts to these people, but at the same time they're not going to listen. We know that. And I try not to be condescending of them. Lord knows I try that to not be condescending of them, but that doesn't mean that I'm not on occasion. I mean, if any of these guys would come sit down and actually talk to me about it and not get belligerent with me and not actually try to talk over me when I'm trying to present them something or tell them something, I wouldn't get defensive with them. I wouldn't get into an argument with them. So it is what it is. I mean, we have to take everything with a certain grain of salt. And that's really what I'm just trying to do. I'm not even I got 6 minutes and I haven't even meant to fill with this, but it's been on my mind lately that I want to have discussions with people from the conservative right that I don't agree with. It doesn't even have to be alt-right, just people of a conservative nature to discuss a socioeconomic policy with. I personally would love to have a system similar to the UK NHS here in the United States. But I know the biggest obstacle is that conservative right, the conservative businesses, even the most liberal businesses that deal in medical care. They are not going to want to have that because they're going to lose a lot of money. Doctors are not going to want to become GPs because it's not going to pay well. They're all going to want to come be specialists, but then they're not going to be enough room for all the specialists. I understand all the different ins and outs and nuances to it, but I would love to sit down and have that topic of discussion. I would also love to sit down and talk to a progressive leftist. Why do you think that collectivism is the way to go? Intersectionality, you know, one of the biggest things that Sargon of Akkad talks about, one of the big things that social justice warriors and feminists and all them talk about is, being a cis white hetero male. I am lower than scum. I'm lower than excrement in many of their opinions. Doesn't bother me that that's their opinion. But let's sit down and have a talk. Let's sit down and have a chat about this. I am actually opening this up for people who want to actually come and chat with me, who would love to come sit down for a half hour, for an hour. I don't care. We can do this live on my stream. We can do it via Skype and I can record it that way. I could even just have audio and have it put into the Podcast 99 show. I mean, I have no problem talking to people about anything. I would love to have it doesn't even have to be a debate, just a simple conversation. That's all I'm asking of you people. If you want to share your ideas, if you want to talk about them, then let's talk, but let's not try to talk over each other. Let's try not to talk through each other like you're wrong and just, ram it down my throat. No, let's have actual discussion and discourse. You can't persuade me if you're going to start calling me names. The moment you start calling me names, and I'm sure this goes with many other people, but I'm going to use me personally. You start calling me names and attacking me for being who I am without giving me reason other than, well, historically speaking, all white people have done this. Well, okay, all white people might have done that back then, but this is now. We've changed. Things like that. So I know it's a bit of a tangent, it's kind of a drop off. Again, this week has literally been crazy with all the things going on at work and having to shift things on the fly. I thank you for being with me tonight here on This Week in U.S. Politics. Glad I could talk about a couple of the local things here in Washington, um, one thing out in Nevada with their voters, and then just a little historical piece with the um, long southeast Long Island coast. I really hope that there isn't much of an environmental impact in that, but at the same time, I hope people would understand that my love for history and the awe that I have for U-boats, submarines in general, naval battles in general, isn't that I support or condone the ideas of those ideologies, but that it's just knowing what these people went through, the living spaces, the way they had to do things, so much different than the way we do things now, and excuse me, and the like. That don't think that I support or care for things that I don't. If you have a question, talk to me about it. You can reach me at jpoliticspodcast@gmail.com, jpolypodcast on Twitter. You can listen to me on Podcast 99, or you can even watch me live here on YouTube. I also, before I go, I want to put it out there. I have started up a new video channel. I'm still learning things. I hopefully will be putting up content every week, if not a couple times a week, on BitChute, BITCHUT.com. It's similar to YouTube. It's a video sharing service, but I hope to be able to upload my content there as well. So I look forward to talking with you guys next week, talking with you over the week. Please, by all means, use Twitter, use my email. I have those on my phone. I would love to hear from you. Again, that's jpoliticspodcast@gmail.com or jpolypodcast on Twitter. By all means, get in touch with me, contact me, and I would love to hear from you. Also, check us out on podcast99.org. Listen to the Dave Bowman Show, Constitution Thursday, the Ale Evangelist, all the other shows that we have. Tim Price, sorry. All right, so I'm getting out of here. It's 4:30 local time on Friday, June 15th. This has been This Week in U.S. Politics, episode 17, because I didn't give that out in the beginning of the episode. On Catch me out in a half an hour over on Jarabuto's channel and later tonight on Side Strike's channel. Have a wonderful weekend.